The rehearsal stopped cold. Bono's hand went up, silencing U2's rhythm section mid-phrase. Whitney Houston stood at the microphone, one of the most powerful voices in music history, suddenly frozen in uncertainty. What happened next at Wembley Stadium in October 1999 would change both their careers forever. NetAid was supposed to save the world, a global concert broadcast to 1 billion people, raising money to fight poverty. Bono, the activist rock star, was the obvious choice. But Whitney Houston, the pop princess known for soaring ballads and feel-good anthems? The organizers paired them for a duet of U2's One, arguably the band's most emotionally raw song. It was written during the recording of Achtung Baby, when Bono's marriage was crumbling and the band was nearly falling apart. One wasn't just a song, it was a scar set to music, and Bono didn't think Whitney Houston knew anything about scars. Backstage at Wembley, 3 days before the concert, the two stars met during production meetings. Whitney arrived with her entourage, assistants, vocal coaches, security. Bono came alone, wearing his trademark sunglasses indoors. "Miss Houston," Bono said, extending his hand, "looking forward to our duet." Whitney smiled that million-dollar smile. "Please call me Whitney, and I'm honored to sing with you too. One is such a beautiful song." Beautiful. That word made Bono wince. "It's not supposed to be beautiful," he said quietly. "It's supposed to hurt." The room went silent. Whitney's smile faltered slightly. The first rehearsal was scheduled for 2 p.m. the next day. Whitney showed up at 1:45, professionally early. U2 was already on stage, running through their set. She watched from the wings as Bono tore through Sunday, Bloody Sunday, his voice raw, every note sounding like it was ripped from somewhere deep inside him. When he finished, he saw her standing there. "Ready?" he asked. "Absolutely," Whitney said, walking to the microphone stand next to his. The Edge counted them in. The iconic piano riff of One began filling Wembley's empty 100,000-seat stadium. Bono sang the first verse, his delivery stripped of any polish or pretense. Just pain, naked and honest. Then it was Whitney's turn. She opened her mouth and that voice, the voice, came out. Perfect pitch, flawless control. Every note precisely where it should be, with those signature Whitney Houston runs that made her famous. It was technically perfect, and it was completely wrong. Bono stopped singing. He signaled the Edge to cut the music. "Hold on," Bono said. He walked over to Whitney. "Can we talk for a second?" Whitney looked confused. "Did I miss a note?" "No," Bono said. "You hit every note, that's the problem." The band members exchanged glances. "Look, Whitney," Bono continued, "no offense, but One is about pain, real pain. Achtung, baby, the album this came from. I wrote it while my marriage was falling apart. It's about struggle. Your songs, Greatest Love of All, I Will Always Love You, they're anthems, celebrations. Can you sing pain? Can you sing like you've actually lost something?" Whitney's face went from confused to hurt to something else. Anger, maybe, or shame. "Bono, I've lost plenty," she said quietly. "You don't know my life." "Then show me," Bono challenged. "Because right now, all I see is someone who sings notes. I need someone who sings scars. Can you do that? Or should we just cut the duet and save ourselves the embarrassment?" If you think that was harsh, you haven't heard what Whitney did next. Whitney didn't argue, didn't defend herself, didn't storm off. She walked back to the microphone. "Play it again," she said simply, "from the top. Don't stop for anything." The Edge looked at Bono. Bono nodded. The piano started again. Bono sang his verse the same way. Raw, broken, real. Then Whitney's turn came. But this time something was different. Instead of that powerful belt that made her famous, she started with barely more than a whisper. "Is it getting better? Or do you feel the same?" Her voice cracked slightly on same. Not because she couldn't hit the note, because she chose to let it crack. "Will it make it easier on you now? You got someone to blame." No runs, no showing off. Just simple, devastating honesty. When she got to the line, "We're one, but we're not the same," her voice broke completely. A gospel moan escaped. Not the pretty kind she did in church, but the kind that sounds like grief itself. The Edge missed his next chord change. He was crying. Adam Clayton, U2's bassist, who'd played with everyone from B.B. King to Johnny Cash, stopped playing entirely. Just stood there, tears streaming down his face. Bono kept singing with her, but his voice was different now too. Smaller, more vulnerable. Because suddenly he wasn't singing at Whitney Houston. He was singing with a woman who understood exactly what one was about. The bridge hit. Did I disappoint you or leave a bad taste in your mouth? Whitney sang it like a confession, not a performance, like she was asking the question to herself, not an audience. By the final chorus, Bono wasn't leading anymore. He was following her phrasing, matching her pain. She'd stopped trying to out-sing him. Instead, she'd done something much harder. She'd matched his brokenness. When the song ended, there was absolute silence in the stadium. Then the Edge put down his guitar and started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. "Fuck me," he said. "That was the best version of this song we've ever done, and we've been playing it for 8 years." Bono walked over to Whitney. She was shaking. "That," he said quietly, "was the truth. Where did that come from?" Whitney looked at him, and for the first time, he saw past the superstar image. He saw a woman who'd been hiding pain under big notes for decades. "You asked me if I've lost something," she said. "Bono, I've lost everything. My voice just got so good at covering it up that even I forgot it was there." What happened next shocked everyone in the room. Bono, the rock star known for his ego and his causes, hugged her. A real hug, not a celebrity air kiss. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was wrong. You don't need to learn how to sing pain. You just needed permission to stop hiding it." The 2 days between that rehearsal and the concert were unlike anything Whitney had experienced in her 17-year career. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Bono's question. "Can you sing like you've lost something?" The answer kept changing. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes she wasn't sure she even knew what the question meant anymore. On the morning of the concert, Whitney's vocal coach arrived at her hotel suite for their usual pre-show warm-up, but Whitney sent her away. "Not today," she said. "Today I need to sound real, not perfect." Her assistant looked concerned. "Whitney, you've never skipped warm-ups before a major performance." "I've never sung this before a major performance," Whitney replied, gesturing to her heart. "And I don't think you can warm up for that." Backstage at Wembley, hours before showtime, Whitney sat alone in her dressing room. No entourage, no phone calls, just silence and her thoughts. There was a knock. "Come in," she said. It was Bono. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. Whitney gestured to the couch across from her. They sat in silence for a moment. "You scared?" Bono finally asked. "Terrified," Whitney admitted. "Good," Bono said. "If you're not scared, you're not about to do anything worth doing. The only performances I'm proud of are the ones that terrified me beforehand." "What if I freeze out there?" Whitney asked. "What if I go for the vulnerability and nothing comes out?" Bono smiled. "Then you'll be very vulnerable, won't you? And that's kind of the point." 3 hours later, 100,000 people filled Wembley Stadium. 1 billion more watched on screens around the world. U2 performed their set with typical intensity. Whitney had done her solo numbers earlier. Flawless as always, the crowd eating it up. But in her dressing room afterward, she'd done something unusual. She'd looked at herself in the mirror and said out loud, "Tonight you're not Whitney Houston, the superstar. You're Nippy from Newark, who used to sing in her mama's church. Remember her. Be her." Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The duet. Bono walked back out with Whitney. Before they started, he did something unexpected. He changed his usual introduction. "This song is about people who love each other but can't stay together," he told the massive crowd. "About damage that doesn't heal and differences that don't disappear just because you want them to. Tonight, I'm singing it with someone who taught me something this week. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is be quiet." Whitney Houston. The piano started. For the billion people watching, what happened next was unlike anything they'd seen from Whitney Houston before. She sang with half the power she was capable of, maybe less. Every technique she'd perfected over 2 decades, the runs, the belts, the glory notes that made her famous, she set aside. Instead, she sang like a woman who'd lost something and was trying to find it again. The restraint was almost painful to watch. This was the woman who could shake stadiums with her voice, holding back, making herself small, making herself real. Bono matched her vulnerability. No rock star posturing, no raised fist or swagger, just two people singing about being broken and not knowing how to fix it. The final note, they sang it together, quietly, letting it fade out instead of building to some big finish. The stadium went completely silent for 3 full seconds, then eruption. But it wasn't the usual concert screaming. It was something deeper. People weren't just entertained, they were moved. In the press conference afterward, a reporter asked Bono about the duet. "I've sung with Pavarotti, with B.B. King, with Frank Sinatra," Bono said. "But tonight, Whitney Houston taught me something I'd forgotten after 20 years of making music. I thought rock and roll was about rebellion. Turns out, the most rebellious thing you can do is submit. Submit to the song, not your ego." She submitted tonight, and in doing so, she owned that stage in a way I've never seen before. Whitney was asked the same question. "Bono told me to sing my scars," she said simply. "I've been hiding my scars under big notes for 20 years. Tonight, I stopped hiding, and it felt like freedom." But here's what nobody knew at the time. What happened at that rehearsal when Bono challenged Whitney and she revealed her pain? It haunted him. Because 3 days before that concert, after that transformative rehearsal, Bono had asked her to grab a coffee. Just the two of them. No crews or cameras. "Can I ask you something personal?" he'd said. "You've already asked me pretty personal things." Whitney smiled. "When you sang that lyric, did I disappoint you? Who were you singing to?" Whitney was quiet for a long moment. "Everyone," she finally said. "My mother, who wanted me to stay in gospel. Clive Davis, who made me a superstar but made me sing his way. My fans, who want the big Whitney but might not want the real one. My daughter, who deserves a mother who's present instead of performing. Bobby, who I can't seem to leave even though I know I should. And myself. Mostly myself." Bono didn't know what to say. "That's why it's easier to just hit the notes and collect the check," Whitney continued. "If I actually let myself feel these songs, I might not survive it." She paused, stirring her coffee, even though she hadn't added anything to it. "You know what the worst part is? I can't even remember the last time I sang just because I wanted to. Not because it was a performance, not because someone was paying me, not because it would sell records. Just singing because it felt good. When did that stop?" Bono leaned forward. "When did you stop? Or when did Whitney Houston stop?" "Is there a difference?" Whitney asked. "I think that's the question you need to answer," Bono said, "because the woman who sang one in that rehearsal, that woman knows the difference. She was Nippy, not Whitney, and Nippy can still sing just because it feels good." Whitney's eyes filled with tears. "What if Nippy's gone? What if I performed her away?" "She's not gone," Bono said firmly. "I heard her 3 days ago. She's just buried under a lot of sequins and expectations. But she's in there, fighting to get out." Those words would echo in Bono's mind for 13 years. In February 2012, Whitney Houston was found dead in a Beverly Hills hotel bathtub. The world mourned. Tributes poured in from everywhere. Bono was in Dublin when he heard. He canceled that night's concert, something U2 almost never does. He sat in his hotel room for hours, unable to move, thinking about that coffee conversation in 1999. "If I actually let myself feel these songs, I might not survive it." She'd been telling him the truth. She'd been warning him, and he'd been too caught up in his own artistic philosophy to hear it. He released a statement that shocked people. "In 1999, Whitney Houston taught me that gospel and rock come from the same place. The place where you've got nothing left but the truth. I was arrogant enough to think she couldn't sing pain. Turns out she was living in pain, and I was too deaf to hear it. I'm sorry, Whitney, and thank you for the lesson." The statement went viral. Music journalists debated its meaning. But those who'd been at that NetAid rehearsal, The Edge, Adam Clayton, the sound engineers, they knew exactly what Bono meant. But that wasn't all. When U2 went back into the studio to work on their next album, Bono brought something to the first session, a recording he'd kept private for 13 years. It was that rehearsal at Wembley, the moment Whitney sang One with her voice cracking and breaking, the moment she stopped performing and started confessing. "Listen to this," he told The Edge and the rest of the band. "This is what we've been trying to do for 30 years, and she did it in one take." That recording became the template for how U2 approached their next three albums. Less production, more vulnerability. Less showing off, more truth. Whitney Houston changed U2, The Edge said in an interview years later. People don't realize that. But after that NetAid concert, after seeing her strip away all that power and just be honest, Bono was never the same. None of us were. The dedication on U2's 2000 album, All That You Can't Leave Behind, reads, "To Whitney Houston, who showed us that quiet is the new loud."